Hello, it's Greg Grizzly and Gaijin. We're back. We hope you're having a happy day wherever you're listening to this audio content from. As always, we'd like to thank you for your continued support of Greg Grizzly and Gaijin social media and writing efforts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is episode 052 of the Greg Grizzly and Gaijin, definitely not a podcast show. A light and fluffy look at social media, Japan, Japanese food, expat life, and life in general. As always, your retweets of this and all the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful content that we actively tweet and retweet out on Craig Hoffman11 on Twitter is appreciated. Thank you in advance for helping us get the good word out about Greg Grizzled and Gaijin. Hello and welcome back. Today we are talking about the very basic tent poles of successful blogging and marketing, specifically on Twitter today. This comes about as I'm in a blogging group and I have been a mentor to a few people, and I'm in the writing communities, especially on Twitter, and I'm an active participant in helping people, especially young writers, develop their craft. And I get a lot of the same questions again and again and again, and I'm happy to answer them. But I thought I would take a moment on this beautiful Sunday here in Japan to kind of address the younger bloggers and writers and social media people, hopefully to give them some hints, tips, and tricks to help them, as well as some pitfalls to try to avoid as they climb up the social media and blogging ladders, and as they encounter the challenges and plateaus that every blogger and social media and writing person worth anything will inevitably face. Doesn't mean I have every answer, but I've been writing and blogging and on social media in earnest for a good bit, and I've found some modicum of success, and people, especially over the past couple of years, who have talked to me and implemented some of my hints, tips, and tricks have seen their social media and blogs grow, and they've been really appreciative of that. So that being said, let's get to it. The first thing I get a lot of people, how do I start a blog? Get a blog. That seems simple, but that stops a lot of people. Oh, I'm going to get around to that. But it's really tough to be a blogger when you don't have a blog. And people say, well, you got to self-host and you got to buy a domain name and all that stuff. And I know people are listening and screaming, hey, you got to do that, you got to do that, you got to do that. Perhaps you do if you really do want to make some serious cash. But in the beginning, especially when you are a person, if you say, have you ever blogged before? No. Have you ever written before? No. Have you ever been on social media before? No. If you answered no to those three questions and you go out and spend $100 or more to get a domain name and set up a blog, I wonder if you are really cut out for blogging, writing, and social media. And I mean no disrespect. One has to have a skill set. One of the biggest problems I see with the young bloggers and the new bloggers, regardless of age, is they lack good writing skills. That seems like that would be a prerequisite for a written blog especially, but I see a lot of poor writing, spelling, grammar, mechanics, style, and it affects traffic to a blog. People expect an above average written blog. You don't have to be Stephen King level. That's one of those urban legends. You don't have to be an amazing writer, but you had better be above average in terms of your ability to create a unique topic, to write with some style, and to use the good King's English, as my great graduate school professor used to say, and he hated my writing back in the day. The second part of that is that people underestimate the time that it takes to be a consistent blogger. And I've done other pieces on this topic. I'm a warp speed blog creator and writer, and that comes not from being particularly super talented, but rather from developing my craft daily, especially here in Japan. For nearly the last 15 years, I've written every single day, rain or shine, healthy or sick, and even if I wanted to or didn't want to write. And the results are that I can quickly put together blog posts. But that's generally not true, especially when you're first learning to use something like WordPress. And again, I talk a lot, and I will talk a lot today, about that learning curve. So we have the first learning curve. You have to learn how to write. And that's a steep learning curve that has very little to do with being smart. It just takes time. There's a steep learning curve to understand how to format and set up a blog post. The headings, the quote tweets, inserting pictures, the balances between big and small, and how that looks not only on a desktop, but then checking to make sure that it looks clean and readable on a mobile device where most of your blog traffic will come from. The third part of that is the social media learning curve. I had Twitter. I started it because a friend said, hey, you should get on Twitter. It's really popular. I saw no point in sharing my personal life with the masses, so I kind of abandoned my account. And when I got back into public writing and blogging, I had written a couple books, and of course nobody knows who I am, and I didn't really sell any books or move any books, despite being, again, above average to well above average, depending on who you talk to, or really, really, really terrible if you believe the trolls, and thanks for that. But I set about on Twitter, and I remember researching and reading how to build a following, how to engage people, how to tweet, how to get more interactions on a tweet, how to promote a blog. I mean, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of reading and YouTube videos. And it's all free generally, although there are paid courses that I'm told are pretty good. But that was a steep learning curve for me, especially for about the first 6 months. You learn what to do and what not to do. Especially you learn not to be controversial on Twitter. People will come at you quick, fast, and in a hurry. Wow. And you'll be surprised what people get really cheesed about. I commented one day, I was a little angry that my eel lunch was expensive, and somebody said, quote, you're using your white privilege to complain about your lunch. And I was just honestly complaining that my eel was way, way, way overpriced. So there are those people out there, and they come at you, especially when you get bigger. Nobody cares when you've got like 200 followers, right? And you're tweeting. But I got 1,000, 2,000. When I got above 5,000, people in my niche started to take notice of me, especially here in Japan and in some of the writing community. And I started doing more social media things, and people engaged me more. And of course, they start looking for relationship building with me, as well as they want retweets and likes and shout outs and all the rest, as they should. And that's the way one does build social media. But that takes time. So now you've got blogging that takes time, and the writing the content takes time, and creating the posts take time, and engaging people takes time. And the bigger you get, the more time that you have to devote to marketing. And I say it all the time that successful blogging and writing is 80% marketing. 80% of all the time I devote to writing, blogging, and social media is marketing. That's true when I design a post. I'm thinking about how to bring more readers in, how to keep readers on my blog. It's true when I'm choosing topics and what to write and talk about. I want timely topics that people are interested in. If they're not interested in it, they don't listen. If they don't listen, they don't read, they don't share, and I don't grow. If I'm on social media, I'm very aware of who's engaging me, who's written a message, who has shared my content, and I make effort to retweet those people. I make effort to talk to those people, and I make effort to make sure that those people feel appreciated in terms of their social media relationship with me. And of course, I'm always looking for new and interesting ways to market my blog content, and I'm also looking for ways to do that stuff faster. But I can tell you, when I got to about 15,000 Twitter followers, and now I have 640 plus blog posts, that's a significant amount of time and effort and energy into developing the Gray, Grizzled, and Gaijin brand. And one of the first things I did not do early was understand the value of developing a personal brand. I simply wrote as Craig, and that was great. But when I made a conscious switch to Gray, Grizzled, and Gaijin, created some logos with Canva and other easy-to-use programs, including Microsoft Paint, none of which is special. I certainly should have taken more time and thought and energy into developing a more defining logo and motto, but I didn't. I overcame that by being incessant with a simple message of Gray, Grizzled, and Gaijin, and the fact that I was a positive person willing to engage and help anyone. But I got really, really lucky, to tell the truth. As far as the blog, I wrote too many posts without turning to the self-hosting and buying a domain name. My blog is still a free blog after 640 posts, and I did an evaluation of my blog, and despite it being free, the content alone is worth several $1,000s, and the advertising generated from such a blog would probably almost be enough for me to not work, or at least to work less than I do in my real life. That was a mistake. It was a happy little mistake because honestly, I was never driven to make money from my blog. I really just wanted to be remembered in life, and I had talked about that. I had turned 40. I wanted to do kind of a bucket list thing and write a book, and I found that I enjoyed it, but I wanted more people to love Japan like I do. I wanted people to discuss real issues that affect foreigners who live in Japan, and I wanted the general population to take something from my writing to be more positive and happy in their daily lives. And those are all lofty and admirable goals, but they had very little to do with money. And more recently, I've stepped back and not gone nearly as hard at my blog. I still produce content, and I'm sure this will be inserted into a blog post in the near future. But I've realized that in all of my blogging success and my mentoring and my social media growth, especially on Twitter, that I had lost sight of my original goal, which was to simply write more and more books. So I reevaluated, and that's a constant thing, I think, for successful bloggers and writers and social media people, that you have to understand, is what I'm doing helping me, hurting me, or doing nothing for me? And I know daily when I look at my blog and I go back and I review old posts, or I'm thinking about the next post, or I'm putting something together for Twitter, my constant question for myself is, how can I get better? And I don't spend a lot of time comparing myself to other bloggers and Twitter people and other writers. I think that's a waste of time. But I see a lot of blog envy, social media envy, especially on Twitter, and there's envy in talent and ability. Some people are really, really talented writers, and that tends to discourage people. And some people naturally have a personality that matches social media. And honestly, some people are just better looking. And people get intimidated when somebody really cute who has a little personality does a great video, or the handsome guy does a video. Or people have more money to put into great destinations and food and content. So I generally tell people, don't compare yourself to me, don't compare yourself to other people. Be who you are, and that will either be enough for you to find success or it won't. And you can only control what you do in blogging and social media and writing. The final tip I'll say is that the number one thing that I see that makes the biggest difference between success and failure on blogging and social media is consistency. If people are consistent in content creation, in posting, and the marketing, almost without fail, they find some success. Now that doesn't mean they all become rich and famous. That's a crapshoot that even the best of people fight an uphill climb against daily. but consistent people generally over time come out on top. So take heart wherever you're starting your blog, if it's the first post, the 10th post, or like me into the several hundredth post, you can do it. That's it, and have a great, great day.